In the middle of the western desert, a new town began to take shape. Tracks were laid. Buildings rose from dust. Among the first was a brothel, where knights followed strict rules. The women did not choose their names, and no one asked why some rooms stayed empty. Every morning, the house opened its doors as if nothing had changed. The land did not have a name yet. It stretched outward in every direction, flat and pale, shaped by wind and time rather than by people. During the day, the sun rested heavily over the desert, pressing heat into the ground. At night, the temperature fell quietly, without warning, leaving the sand cool and still. There were no marked roads, no fences, no signs meant to last. Only faint tracks crossed the surface, left by wagons that had already moved on. Those tracks softened with every passing hour, slowly erased by wind and drifting dust. For a long time, nothing here suggested that a town would ever exist. Then the railroad arrived. It did not come gently. Steel rails were laid down with purpose, cutting a straight line through the open land. Wooden ties were placed one after another, measured and repeated, creating a rhythm that could be felt even before it could be heard. The sound of metal striking, metal carried far across the desert. It echoed in the open space, then faded, leaving silence behind it. The railroad did not stop because the land was welcoming. It stopped because it had to. Water was needed. Coal was needed. Men needed a place to rest before continuing west. A small platform was built beside the tracks. It was not meant to be permanent. Just enough wood to stand on. Just enough space for cargo to be unloaded. This platform became the center. Around it, the land remained unchanged. Dust settled. The wind moved slowly, carrying dry air through the empty space. At first, there were only tents, canvas stretched over wooden poles. Simple shelters that could be taken down quickly. Men slept close together, boots near their hands, tools within reach. At night, small fires burned low, not for warmth, but for light. The flames flickered against the dark, then dimmed. No one spoke of building a town. There was no announcement. No decision was recorded, but certain structures appeared faster than others. A saloon was built first. It rose from the ground with rough wooden walls and a wide front door. Inside, the air smelled of alcohol, dust, and sweat. Tables were uneven. Chairs were mismatched. The saloon did not need decoration. It served a simple purpose. Men came in after long days of work. They spoke little. They drank slowly. Outside, the wind continued to move across the land. Unchanged. Soon after, another building took shape nearby. It was larger than the saloon. 2 stories high. Its windows were evenly spaced, though the glass was imperfect and slightly warped. This building was the brothel. No sign announced it. No name was painted on the front. Its function was understood without explanation. It was built with speed, not care. Boards were nailed into place quickly. The structure stood straight enough, strong enough. Inside, narrow hallways connected small rooms. Each room held the same few objects: a bed, a chair, a wash basin. Oil lamps were placed along the walls. When lit, they gave off a warm, unsteady glow. At night, this light was visible from a distance, from far out in the desert. The lamps looked like small stars resting just above the ground. The town still had no name. People referred to it only as a stop, a place along the line, a pause between one destination and the next. The railroad brought movement. The movement brought people. The people brought routines. Every morning followed the same pattern. The sun rose. Dust lifted slightly from the ground. Men stepped outside, stretching, pulling on boots stiff from the day before. Trains arrived at regular intervals. Steam hissed. Metal clank Ed. Cargo was unloaded. Supplies were counted. Then the train moved on. During the day, the brothel stood quietly. Its doors were closed. The windows reflected the bright sky. Nothing about the building suggested activity. It blended into the row of other wooden structures. Plain and unremarkable. The saloon, by contrast, remained open. A few men sat inside even during daylight hours, nursing drinks and watching the door. They did not speak much. Words were unnecessary. As evening approached, the temperature softened. The sun lowered itself toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the dirt. This was when the town began to change. Oil lamps were lit one by one. Their glow pushed back the dark slowly, without urgency. Inside the brothel, the lamps created a steady pattern of light. Along the hallway, the piano inside the saloon began to play. The sound was not loud. It drifted gently through the open door, carried by the evening air. Notes repeated. Simple melodies, practiced and familiar. The music did not invite excitement. It marked time. Men moved between buildings at an unhurried pace. Boots pressed into the dirt, leaving prints that would not last long. The town functioned quietly. No one raised their voice. No one hurried. Everything followed an unspoken schedule. Beyond the town, the desert remained unchanged. The same wind passed over the same ground. The same stars appeared overhead when night fully arrived. The land did not acknowledge the buildings placed upon it. From a distance, the town looked small, temporary. As though it could be removed without leaving a trace. Inside the brothel, the air held a consistent warmth. Not hot, not cold. Just enough to keep the lamps burning steadily. The rooms waited. They did not belong to anyone. They were simply occupied. Outside, the railroad rested in silence until morning. The tracks cooled. The platform stood empty. The stop existed only because people were present. Without them, it would return to dust. As night settled fully, the town entered its most active hours. Yet even then, nothing felt rushed. Everything moved slowly, deliberately. The land had not changed. Only a few structures stood where nothing had been before. A temporary answer to temporary needs. And for now, that was enough. The town did not grow slowly. It appeared in stages, each one answering a practical need. Once the railroad platform was finished, movement became predictable. Trains arrived at set hours. Men stepped down, unloaded supplies, then stepped back on. Time in this place followed the schedule of the rails. The first permanent building stood close to the tracks. It was plain and low, built with speed in mind rather than comfort. Its walls were rough. The wood still smelled fresh. This building was meant to store goods. Water barrels, coal, tools wrapped in cloth. It had no windows. Only a wide door that stayed open during the day and closed at night. Soon after, another structure rose beside it. This one had windows, wide enough to let in air, wide enough to let out sound. The saloon. It was built quickly, but not carelessly. The front was made to face the tracks, as if greeting anyone who arrived. A swinging door hung slightly crooked, moving gently with the wind. Inside, the floor was uneven. The walls were bare. A long wooden counter stretched across one side of the room. Bottles lined the shelves behind it. Not many, just enough. The saloon filled a space that had already existed. Men needed a place to sit, a place to rest their bodies after long hours under the sun. By the second week, the saloon was rarely empty. It opened early and closed late. Sometimes it did not close at all. Voices inside remained low. Laughter was brief. Conversation faded quickly. Outside, the desert remained quiet. Dust drifted through the open door, settling on the floor before being stirred up again by passing boots. As the saloon became established, another building followed. It stood slightly apart from the others. Not far, just enough to be noticed. It was taller than the rest. 2 stories high. Its shape was simple, but its size gained presence. This was the brothel. No announcement was made when construction began. No explanation was offered. The men who built it worked efficiently. They did not linger. They did not ask questions. Boards were raised. Nails were driven in. Windows were fitted. The building took form in a matter of days. Inside, the layout was practical. A hallway ran down the center. Rooms branched off on either side. Each room was nearly identical. A bed made of iron, a thin mattress, a chair, a small table, a wash basin set near the wall. There were no decorations, nothing personal. Oil lamps were fixed at regular intervals along the hallway. Their placement was measured. Their purpose was clear. When lit, they provided enough light to see, but not enough to soften the shadows. The brothel did not open immediately. For several days, it stood quiet. The doors remained closed. The windows reflected the sky. Men passed by without comment. They already understood what it was for. By the time the brothel opened, the town had taken shape. It was not large. Only a handful of buildings stood near the tracks. Beyond them, open land stretched outward, untouched. No fences marked the town's edge. No signs welcomed visitors. The railroad decided where the town began and ended. Every morning, the same routine repeated. The sun rose slowly. Light spread across the ground. Men stepped out from tents or small rooms, stretching stiff muscles. The air was dry and still. By mid-morning, the sound of work filled the space. Metal struck metal. Voices called out brief instructions. The saloon remained open. Though it was quieter during the day, a few men sat inside, watching dust drift through the doorway. The brothel remained closed until evening. It did not draw attention to itself. It existed without asking to be noticed. As the sun moved lower in the sky, the pace of the town changed. Work slowed. Tools were set aside. Men washed their hands in basins filled earlier in the day. Boots pressed fresh tracks into the dirt as people moved toward familiar places. Oil lamps were lit. One by one, small points of light appeared inside the buildings. The saloon glowed first, then the brothel. The piano began to play again. Its sound carried across the open space, soft and repetitive. The melody was simple. It did not change much from night to night. The music did not demand attention. It simply existed. Inside the brothel, the lamps cast long shadows along the hallway. The air was warm, but not heavy. The building held heat from the day, releasing it slowly. Rooms stood ready. Nothing in them suggested ownership. They belonged to the structure, not to the people who used them. Outside, men moved quietly between buildings. Their steps were unhurried. No one ran. No one shouted. The town did not encourage urgency. It was a place meant for waiting. As night settled fully, the desert cooled. Stars appeared overhead, clear and steady. The buildings stood dark against the land, their lights small and contained. From a distance, The town looked fragile dot, as if it could be taken apart as quickly as it had been assembled. The railroad rested until morning dot. The tracks cooled beneath the open sky. Nothing moved except the wind dot inside the brothel. The lamps continued to burn. Their light remained steady. The hallway stayed quiet. The rooms remained unchanged. The building did exactly what it was meant to do. No more, no less. This place was not built to last. It was built to serve a moment. Pause along the line. A brief answer to immediate needs. The town existed because people were here. When they left, it would fade. For now, the structure stood. Wood against sand, light against dark, and the desert waited, unchanged. The women did not arrive all at once. They came in small groups, spaced out over time. Some arrived by train. Others came by wagon, traveling for days across open land. The train always arrived with sound first. A distant rumble, a long whistle cutting through the still air. When it stopped, steam drifted upward and slowly disappeared into the sky. The women stepped down carefully. They carried small bags, sometimes only a single case. There were no greetings waiting for them. No family, no friends, only the platform, the dust, and the low buildings beyond. Those who arrived by wagon were quieter. The wagons rolled in slowly, wheels creaking as they crossed the uneven ground. The horses were tired. Their heads hung low. When the wagons stopped, the women climbed down without help. They stood still for a moment, adjusting to the light and the heat. The town did not pause to observe them. Men continued their work. The saloon door swung open and closed. The wind moved as it always had. There was no ceremony. The women were led toward the taller building near the tracks. The brothel door opened and closed again. Once inside, the sound of the town faded. The hallway was narrow and straight. Oil lamps lined the walls, their light steady and warm. The air smelled faintly of oil, wood, and dust. Each woman was shown to a room. The rooms were identical. A bed made of iron, a thin mattress, a chair placed near the wall, a small table, a wash basin with a pitcher beside it. Nothing else. No pictures, no personal items. The women placed their bags down slowly. Some sat on the bed. Others remained standing. No one explained how long they would stay. No one asked where they had come from. Soon, names were changed. The names they arrived with were not used again. New names were chosen quickly. Simple names, easy to remember. Once spoken, those names replaced the old ones. The past was not discussed. It was not forbidden. It was simply unnecessary. The women learned the rhythm of the building. Morning was quiet. Afternoon was still. Evening brought movement. Oil lamps were lit at the same time each night. The hallway filled with soft light. Footsteps sounded on the wooden floor. The women learned where to stand, where to sit, when to wait. No instructions were written down. Everything was shown once, then expected to be remembered. Some women asked questions. Most did not. They understood that asking would not change anything. Outside, the town continued its routine. Trains arrived. Trains departed. Men came and went. Inside the brothel, time moved differently. Hours blended together. The same sounds repeated. The piano from the saloon drifted through the air in the evenings. Melody rarely changed. It was slow and familiar. The women learned to recognize the passage of time by sound rather than by clock. The piano meant evening. Silence meant late night. The faint sounds of morning meant rest. Their names were spoken often, but never with urgency. Nothing here moved quickly. The women spoke, among themselves in quiet voices. Short conversations. Simple words. Questions about the weather. Comments about the heat. No one asked about life before. No one spoke about what might come next. They learned that staying present made the time pass more easily. Some women adapted quickly. They moved through the building with calm steps. They followed the routine without hesitation. Others took longer. Their movements were slower. Their eyes watched everything closely. Over time, even they adjusted. The building encouraged routine. Repetition softened resistance. Days passed, then weeks. The women learned which lamps flickered, which floorboards creaked. They learned when the building was most quiet. Late at night, after the piano stopped, the hallway grew still. The lamps continued to burn. Their light did not change. The rooms remained the same. The women slept lightly. Dreams came and went. Morning always arrived without announcement. Light filtered through the windows. Dust floated in the air. The building felt cooler in the early hours. Outside, the town woke slowly. Men stepped into the street. Boots pressed into the dirt. Inside, the women washed their faces and hands. Water was limited, used carefully. No one lingered. The day passed quietly. Sometimes a train arrived earlier than expected. Sometimes it was delayed. The women noticed these changes only by the reactions of the town. When more men arrived, the evening grew busier. When fewer came, the night passed quietly. The women learned not to anticipate. Expectation only made time heavier. They focused instead on routine, on repetition, on the steady pattern of the lamps being lit and extinguished. Some women kept small habits, straightening the chair before sitting, placing their bag in the same corner of the room. These habits created a sense of control. Even small control mattered. New women arrived. Occasionally, they were easy to recognize. Their movements were uncertain. Their eyes searched the hallway. The others watched quietly. No one offered comfort, not out of cruelty, but understanding. Comfort did not last. Silence did. Over time, the new women learned the same rhythm. Their uncertainty faded. They took their place in the routine. The building absorbed them. Outside, the desert remained unchanged. Wind moved across the land. Sand shifted slowly. The town existed as a temporary mark. Inside the brothel, the lamps continued to glow each night. The hallway remained narrow and familiar. The rooms stayed identical. Nothing personal entered the space. The women belonged to the rhythm more than to the place. Their names were spoken. Their past were not. Days continued to pass. Weeks folded into months. The routine did not change. And in that repetition, time became soft. Less defined. Easier to move through. The rules of the house were never written down. No paper listed them. No sign explained them. Yet everyone understood them. They were learned through observation, through repetition, through quiet correction. The building itself seemed to teach them. There was a woman who managed the house. She did not introduce herself. Her name was spoken, but never with familiarity. She moved through the building without hurry. Her steps were steady. Her presence was calm. She rarely raised her voice. She did not need to. When she entered a room, conversation stopped. Not out of fear, but habit. She knew where each woman belonged, which room they used, which hours they worked, which nights they rested. These decisions were not explained. They were simply given. Some women were placed on the upper floor. Others remained below. The difference was understood without being discussed. The upper floor was quieter. The lower floor saw more movement. No one argued about placement. Those who questioned it learned. Quickly, the questions did not change outcomes. The rules extended. Beyond rooms. They governed movement. Where to stand in the hallway, when to wait, when to step aside. The hallway was narrow. Passing required awareness. Women learned to move without touching, to pause at the right moment, to avoid blocking the way. These movements became automatic. There were rules about speech. Voices were kept low. Words were chosen carefully. No one spoke about personal matters within the walls. Names were used, but lightly, as labels rather than identities. The past was left outside the building. It did not cross the threshold. The rules also governed visibility. Some women were seen often, others less so. This was not announced. It happened gradually. A woman might notice fewer names being called, longer pauses between evenings of work. No explanation followed. This change was accepted quietly. Resistance did not improve. Standing silence did. The manager observed everything. She noticed posture, energy, timing. Nothing escaped her attention. She did not comment on mistakes immediately. Corrections came later. A change in schedule, a change in room. These adjustments were the only feedback given. Protection existed, but it was selective. Some women were watched more closely. Their rooms were checked. Their schedules were lighter. Others were left alone. This difference was understood, though never spoken. Protection was not guaranteed. It was earned through compliance, or sometimes through qualities no one named. The rules extended to illness. When a woman appeared unwell, she was not questioned. She was told to rest, or she was told to continue. The decision came from above. No one challenged it. Health was a factor, but not the only one. The house valued consistency. Disruption was discouraged. The manager did not punish openly. There were no public corrections. Instead, privileges disappeared. Better rooms were reassigned. Easier hours were reduced. These changes spoke clearly. The women learned to read them. The rules governed emotion as well. Strong displays were discouraged. Crying was done privately. Anger was swallowed. Neutral expressions were safest. Calm faces blended best into the routine. The building rewarded predictability. It was not cruel. It was efficient. Efficiency required order. Order required silence. Over time, the rules became invisible. They were no longer thought about. They guided behavior. Without effort, a woman new to the house stood out immediately. Her movements were unsure. Her voice slightly louder. The others noticed, but did not intervene. The building would correct her. The manager would notice. Adjustment always followed. There were no days off marked on a calendar. Rest was given when allowed. Some nights were lighter. Some were heavier. The pattern was never explained in advance. Expectation was unnecessary. The rules also shaped relationships. Friendships existed, but quietly. Small gestures replaced conversation. A cup of water left on a table. A chair straightened. These acts passed without comment. They were understood. Conflicts were rare. Not because disagreements did not exist, but because expression was limited. Disputes faded on their own. The Toes house did not support tension. It smoothed everything into routine. The manager remained central. She was neither kind nor unkind. She was consistent. Her presence defined the boundaries. When she was away, the building felt different. Not unsafe. Just less focused. The women noticed these absences immediately. They moved more carefully. They spoke even less. Order maintained itself. The rules had settled too deeply to vanish. Night after night, the pattern repeated. Oil lamps were lit. Schedules followed. Rooms filled and emptied. The manager watched. She did not interfere, unless necessary. Intervention meant something had shifted. When nothing changed, she remained silent. This silence carried authority. The women learned that stability was the goal. Not comfort. Not happiness. Stability. The house functioned best when nothing stood out. When no one required attention. The rules protected the system, not the individuals. And within that system, everyone found their place. Some higher, some lower. All equally quiet. The house did not promise safety. It promised order. Order was enough to keep everything moving. As nights passed, the rules became the background, like the sound of wind outside. Always present, rarely noticed. The women lived within them, without naming them. The manager continued to observe. The house continued to function, and the silence held everything together. The women came from different places. Their paths did not cross until they arrived here. Some had lived near large cities. They remembered streets with stone buildings and crowded markets. Others came from small towns where everyone knew each other's names. Few had crossed an ocean before crossing the desert. Their accents were different at first. Their words carried traces of other places. Over time, those differences softened. The house shaped speech into something quieter, something flatter. Where they came from was never written down. No record was kept. The house did not need histories. Some women had traveled willingly at first. They had followed promises that sounded reasonable. Work, pay, a temporary stay. Others arrived because there were no better options left. Debt, loss, family, gone or unreachable. The details varied. The result was the same. Once inside the house, reasons no longer mattered. The women learned quickly that asking how others arrived was not useful. Each answer carried weight. Weight made nights heavier. So questions stopped. Instead, they noticed small things. How someone moved. How they held their shoulders. How long they paused before speaking. These details said more than stories ever could. Some women were young when they arrived. Their faces still held softness. Their movements were quicker. They learned the routine faster, but felt it more sharply at first. Others were older. They had already learned how to endure quiet. They adapted with fewer visible changes. The house treated them differently, not openly, not cruelly, just differently. Younger women were watched more closely. Older women were expected to manage themselves. This distinction was never explained. It was understood. The women rarely spoke about the future. Plans did not exist here. Time was measured in days and nights, not years. The idea of leaving was distant, not impossible, just undefined. Some women held on to the thought quietly, others let it fade, holding unrequired energy. Energy was limited. The house encouraged letting go. Some women remembered families, parents, siblings, children left behind. These memories surfaced at night, when the lamps were dim and the hallway quiet. They were not shared. Memories stayed private. Privacy was safer. There were women who arrived already tired. Life had worn them down long before the desert. Did they move carefully? They spoke little. The house accepted them as they were. It did not ask for enthusiasm. Only compliance. Others arrived with resistance still present. It showed in their posture, in the way their eyes searched for exits. This resistance softened over time, not because hope disappeared, but because routine was constant. Routine did not argue. The women learned each other's habits. Who woke early, who slept lightly, who needed silence more than others. They adjusted without discussion. Living close required awareness. Space was limited. Courtesy replaced conversation. Some women formed quiet bonds. They did not call them friendships. They were simply arrangements, sitting near each other, sharing water, waiting together in silence. These bonds did not require explanation. They existed because the nights were long. The house did not encourage closeness, but it did not prevent it. As long as it did not disrupt order. There were women who stood out, not because they tried to, because the house placed them there. They were given better rooms, easier schedules. Their presence was noted. Others watched without resentment. Resentment required energy. Energy was better conserved. Hierarchy existed quietly. Everyone understood it. Some women accepted lower standing without protest. Others noticed the change slowly. A room reassigned. A schedule shifted. These changes carried meaning. They did not require words. Over time, a woman might realize she was being seen less. Her name spoken less often. Her waiting longer. This realization came without announcement. Acceptance followed. The house did not pause for anyone. The women aged quietly. Time showed itself in small ways. Lines near the eyes. Slower movements. The house responded without comment. Schedules adjusted. Rooms changed. Nothing personal, just practical. Some women were eventually moved to different roles. Tasks away from the hallway. Cleaning, laundry, preparation. These changes were not framed as loss. They were simply reassignment. The house valued usefulness. Usefulness changed with time. There were women who disappeared. They left quietly. No for a while. No explanation. Others noticed the empty room the next morning. Another woman took its place. The routine continued. Death was not discussed. Absence was not questioned. The house did not explain endings. The women learned to live without conclusions. Every night followed the same pattern. Lamps lit, footsteps, voices low. Every morning arrived the same way. Light through the windows. Dust in the air. This repetition dulled sharp thoughts. It made days blend together. For some women, this was relief. For others, it was weight, but no one spoke of it. Speaking did not change the pattern. The house did not respond to emotion. It responded to order. Within that order, the women existed, not as individuals, not as stories. As presence. As part of the structure. Their names were used. Their pasts were not. Their reasons for being there remained unspoken. And over time, even those reasons became distant. What mattered was the present moment, the next step, the next pause. The next night, the house held them all the same way, quietly, without judgment, without promise. Night arrives without ceremony. There is no signal beyond the gradual change in light. The sun lowers itself toward the horizon, and the heat that held the ground all day begins to loosen. Shadows stretch across the dirt street, long and thin. The air cools slowly, almost carefully. The town responds in small ways. Work tools are set aside. Voices grow fewer. Movement becomes slower. Oil lamps are lit one by one. Inside the saloon, light spills outward through the open door. Inside the brothel, the lamps come on in a steady order, always the same. The hallway fills with a soft, even glow. This is the beginning of the night. The women prepare without speaking much. There is no rush. They have done this many times before. Hands wash faces. Hair is adjusted. Clothing is smoothed. Nothing about the preparation is dramatic. It is functional, familiar. Each woman moves through the same motions, learned through repetition. The hallway remains quiet. Footsteps sound softly on the wooden floor. They are spaced out, never hurried. The lamps do not flicker much. They burn evenly, as if trained to do so. Outside, the piano begins to play. The sound drifts in from the saloon, carried by the evening air. It is slow, measured. The melody repeats itself, night after night. No one listens closely. The music is not meant to be followed. It exists to mark time. Inside the brothel, doors open and close gently. No one slams them. No one calls out. Movement is controlled, contained. The night unfolds in predictable stages. Early evening is quieter. Fewer footsteps. More waiting. Later, there is more movement in the hallway. More pauses outside closed doors. More quiet exchanges of words too soft to carry far. Nothing breaks. The calm. The house does not allow it. The women learn to read the night by sound. The piano's tempo. The spacing of footsteps. The way the hallway feels when it fills. And when it empties again, time does not pass evenly. Some hours feel longer than others, but the structure remains the same. The lamps stay lit. The hallway stays warm. The rooms remain unchanged. Between moments of movement, there are long stretches of stillness. A woman may sit on the edge of a bed, hands folded. She may stand near the wall, listening to the sounds beyond the door. There is no need to think ahead. The next moment will arrive on its own. The house carries the schedule. No one needs to hold it in. Mind. Voices remain low throughout the night. Conversations are brief, simple phrases, routine words, nothing personal. Personal words carry weight. Weight is avoided. The women understand this without being told. As the night deepens, the town outside grows quieter. The saloon's noise softens. Laughter fades. The piano slows, then pauses, then begins again. The desert beyond the town cools further. Stars appear overhead, sharp and clear. Inside, the lamps continue their steady work. There, light does not change. The hallway looks the same at midnight as it did at dusk. This sameness is intentional. It removes surprise. Surprise disrupts rest. Women move through the night as part of the structure. They are not rushed. They are not delayed. They are absorbed into the rhythm. At times, the hallway is empty. No footsteps. No voices. Only the soft sound of oil burning in the lamps. These moments are the quietest. They stretch gently. A woman may close her eyes briefly, not to sleep, just to rest them. The house allows this. Nothing urgent is happening. Eventually, movement returns. A door opens. Another closes. The night continues. No one marks how many hours have passed. There are no clocks in the hallway. Time is felt, not measured. As the night moves toward its later hours, the pace slows again. Fewer men arrive. Few doors open. The piano stops completely. Silence settles more deeply. Inside the rooms, lamps are turned down slightly. In the hallway, the light remains unchanged. The house stays awake even when the town begins to sleep. Near the end of the night, movement becomes rare. The women know this stage well. It carries a different feeling. Not relief, not tension. Just quiet completion. One by one, doors remain closed. The hallway empties. The lamps continue to burn, waiting. Eventually, the night releases its hold. The air shifts. The darkness outside begins to thin. No announcement marks this change. It is noticed gradually. A difference in sound. A subtle cooling. Morning approaches the same way night arrived. Without ceremony. The lamps are extinguished in the same order they were lit. The hallway dims. The house settles. Another night has passed. No one marks it as different from the one before. It blends into the many that came earlier. The routine remains stable, quiet, unbroken. And as the day begins again, the house waits patiently for night to return. Conversation in the house is never allowed. It never needs to be. Words are used sparingly, like tools taken out only when required. Most nights, the women speak in short phrases, simple sentences, familiar patterns. The same words appear again and again. Not yet. Later. It's quiet tonight. It's warm. It's cooler than yesterday. These words do not invite response. They are not meant to start conversations. They exist to fill small spaces of silence. In the hallway, two women may pass each other. A nod, a brief glance. Sometimes a single word is exchanged. Nothing more. The house does not encourage long speech. Long speech carries emotion. Emotion disrupts the rhythm. Short phrases pass through without leaving marks. In the rooms, voices remain soft. Almost flat. Tone matters more than content. A calm tone keeps the night smooth. Women learn this quickly. They learn to let sentences trail off naturally. They learn to pause before speaking. Pauses are safer than words. The piano from the saloon sometimes drifts back in, not clearly, not fully, just enough to be recognized. A familiar pattern of notes, the same melody, played the same way. No One listens for changes. There are none. The sound becomes part of the background, like wind, like breath, in the hallway. Footsteps repeat the same pattern, step, pause, step. The floorboards creak in the same places. Everyone learns where they are. The creaks stop being noticed. They blend into the night. Occasionally, two women stand near each other. They wait. Waiting does not require conversation. They may comment on something small. The lamp. The air. Still burning. Yes. The exchange ends there. Nothing else needs to be said. Time moves slowly in these moments. Not because it drags, because it spreads out. Without strong events, minutes soften. They lose sharp edges. The house encourages. This soft time is easier to live inside. Some nights are quieter than others. On those nights, conversation nearly disappears. The women move carefully, as if not to disturb the silence. The house seems to listen. Silence becomes something shared. When someone does speak, it is noticeable, but not unwelcome. Just different. Almost morning. Not yet. That is enough. The words pass, and silence returns. The women learn that silence is not empty. It holds sound. Gently, breathing, footsteps, the faint hiss of oil. Lamps. All of it blends together. The house sounds the same each night. This consistency is comforting. No sudden noise. No sharp change. Everything moves in slow circles. In the later hours, conversation fades almost completely. The women no longer try to fill the quiet. There is no need. The night carries itself. If words appear, they are barely audible. Sometimes only breath. A chair shifting slightly. Fabric moving. These sounds replace speech. They say enough. The women grow used to listening without responding. They hear without reacting. This becomes natural. Outside, the town grows still. The saloon closes its doors. The piano stops. The desert settles. Inside, the lamps continue to glow. Their light does not flicker. The hallway remains unchanged. A woman may sit alone for long periods. She does not count the time. She does not think about what comes next. The present moment is enough. Occasionally, a quiet laugh appears. Not loud, not sharp. It surprises even the one who makes it. It fades quickly. House absorbs it. No one comments. The women understand that even small reactions echo longer than expected. So they let them pass. As the night deepens, the air feels heavier. Not uncomfortable, just full. Full of repetition, full of familiar movement. The house settles deeper into itself. Conversation becomes unnecessary. Silence takes over fully. And within that silence, rest becomes possible. Not sleep. Just rest. A resting of thoughts. A resting of expectation. Women allow themselves to exist without effort. Without explanation. This is the quietest part of the night. The lamps remain lit. The hallway remains empty. The house waits. When morning eventually approaches, it does so quietly, without announcement. No conversation marks its arrival. The silence remains. The women know the pattern well enough. Words are no longer required. Another night folds gently into memory. Just like the ones before. It and the house remains still, holding its quiet, waiting for the next evening to return. The house does not explain itself. No rules are posted. No instructions are spoken aloud. Yet everyone understands their place. Hierarchy here is quiet. It is shown through movement, not words. Through where someone stands. Through how long they wait. Through who speaks first and who does not speak at all. Some women walk freely through the halls. They do not pause at doorways. They do not look for permission. Their steps are unhurried. Others move carefully. They stop when someone approaches. They lower their eyes. They wait for space to open. No one corrects them. No one needs to. The order is learned through observation, through repetition, through nights that unfold the same way. Certain rooms are entered without knocking. Other doors are never touched. Everyone knows which is which. No one asks why. Questions disturb the rhythm. At the center of the house, there is always stillness. Not emptiness, presence. It is felt more than seen. The women sense it when they pass. Their pace changes slightly. Their voices soften further. Even those who usually speak do not linger there. They pass through quickly, as if the air itself suggests movement. Power here is subtle. It does not raise its voice. It does not demand. Attention. It exists through consistency. Through being the same every night. Some women sit closer to the lamps. Their faces are more visible. Their presence feels settled. Others remain near the walls. In shadow. Not hidden. Just less seen. No one complains. Visibility is not promised to everyone. It is earned slowly or never. The house does not rush this process. It allows time to decide. Conversations reflect this order. When certain women speak, others listen. Not out of fear, out of habit. The listening feels natural. Like waiting for a familiar sound. When someone lower in the order speaks, it is brief, often practical. Often unnecessary. Their words do not linger. They disappear quickly into the air. The women higher in the order rarely respond directly. A nod, a pause, that is enough. The meaning is understood. No clarification is needed. This unspoken structure keeps the house calm. No arguments. No raised voices. No confusion. Everyone knows how much space they are allowed to take. And they take only that. The night flows smoothly because of this. There is no competition. No urgency. The house does not reward haste. It rewards patience. Waiting becomes a skill. Those who wait well move upward. Slowly. Quietly. No announcement marks the change. One night, they are noticed. Another night, they are not ignored. That is all. Hierarchy here is measured in attention. In where eyes settle. And how long silence holds after someone speaks. Some women command silence without trying. Others speak into it and hear nothing return. Both accept this without resistance. Acceptance keeps the peace. Late in the night, the structure becomes more visible. When tiredness softens. Edges. Those who belong closer to the center remain awake longer. Those at the edges drift away. They rest where they are. Allowed. No one crosses lines. No one tests boundaries. The house does not forgive mistakes easily, but it rarely needs to correct them, because most mistakes never happen. The women learn by watching. They learn by listening to Vi. Silence. They learn when to move forward and when to remain still. Power here is not harsh. It is simply present. Like gravity. It does not push. It pulls. And everything finds its place around it. As the night deepens, hierarchy fades into routine. Once everyone settles, it becomes invisible again. Only movement remains, only breath, only the familiar shape of another quiet night. The house rested in its order, unchallenged, unquestioned, waiting for morning. The same way it waits for every evening. Calm, steady, unchanged. Some mornings, a bed is empty. The sheets are folded. The pillow is cool. No one asks where the woman has gone. There is no announcement. No pause in the routine. Breakfast is prepared the same way. Chairs are placed in the same positions. One place simply remains unused. This happens more than once. At first, it feels unusual. Later, it feels expected. Disappearance here is quiet. No luggage is carried down the stairs. No goodbye is spoken. The house absorbs absence without reaction. The women notice, of course. They always notice. But noticing does not require speaking. A glance lingers longer than usual. A breath is held, then released. And the day continues. Some women leave by choice. They save small amounts of money over many months. They plan silently. They do not share their plans. Hope here is kept private. When the time comes, they leave before sunrise. The door closes softly behind them. The house does not look back. Others do not leave by choice. Illness arrives slowly in this place. It hides beneath makeup. It waits beneath fabric. By the time it is visible, it is already settled. Those women are moved to quieter rooms, near the back, near the walls. Their work becomes lighter. Their presence becomes thinner. They speak less, not because they are told to, because effort becomes expensive. Eventually, they stop coming downstairs. The house adapts again. Someone else takes their place at the table. Another lamp is adjusted. Nothing else changes. There are women who grow older here. Time leaves marks that no powder can fully hide. Lines appear around the eyes. Hands stiffen in the morning. They are not dismissed. They are reassigned. They help prepare rooms. They keep the lamps filled. They know the house better than anyone. They move through it with certainty. They remember names no one else recalls. They remember when the piano first arrived, when the wallpaper was new. They speak rarely, but when they do, others listen. Not out of respect, out of recognition. They are a living memory. Even they do not stay forever. One winter, one of them does not wake. The house discovers her quietly. A blanket is pulled higher. A window is opened. Later, her room is emptied. Her few belongings are placed in a small box. No one claims them. They are stored for a while, then discarded. Memory here has limits. Some women vanish between towns, sent elsewhere, moved quietly. Their names are removed from ledgers. Their faces fade from routine. Within weeks, even their voices are forgotten. The house does not grieve. Grief interrupts rhythm. Instead, it replaces. A new woman arrives, younger, unfamiliar. She looks around with uncertain eyes. The cycle begins again. There are nights when the house feels heavier, when the lamps seem dimmer, when footsteps echo longer than usual. These are the nights when absence is felt most strongly. A chair remains empty for too long. A habit has no owner. The women sense it, even if they do not name it. Silence stretches, then contracts. By morning, it is manageable again. The house teaches everyone not to hold on. Attachment creates imbalance. Balance is valued above all. Even the building itself changes. Paint peels. Wood warps. The piano goes out of tune. Repairs are made slowly, only when necessary. The house ages alongside its inhabitants, not gracefully, but steadily. Eventually, the nights grow quieter. Fewer lamps are lit. Fewer voices fill the air. The railroad moves on. Trade shifts elsewhere. Men stop arriving as often. The house responds by shrinking. Rooms are closed. Hallways darken. What was once full becomes hollow. One evening, the doors do not open. No announcement explains this. The women already know. They pack what little they own. Some leave together. Some alone. The house watches them go. It does not resist. By the next season, dust settles inside. Furniture remains where it was left. The silence deepens. Wind moves through broken spaces. The town around it fades as well. Stores close. Tracks rust. The house stands longer than most. Empty. Still organized. Still holding the shape of routine. Eventually, even that fades. Walls collapse. Roofs cave. What remains is foundation and memory. Though no one is there to remember, the nights return to silence. The kind that existed before the house was built. Before the lamps. Before the rules. Nothing dramatic marks the end. Just time. Just quiet. And the slow erasing of footsteps that once knew exactly where to go. Night returns even after the house has begun to empty. It always does. The building may no longer open its doors, but darkness still arrives unscheduled. Stars appear above the desert, the same way they always have. Wind moves through broken windows without hesitation. The house does not resist it. Inside, dust settles into familiar shapes. It gathers where people once stood, along the edges of rooms, where lamps once glowed. Footprints are no longer made, but their absence feels patterned. As if the floor still remembers weight. Silence here is different. Now. It is wider. Less contained. Before, silence lived between sounds. Now, it fills everything, yet the house does not feel. Abandoned. It feels paused. As if it expects something to resume. The walls still hold. Echoes, not loud ones. Soft impressions. A chair scraping lightly against wood. A distant piano note, long since released. A breath taken in the dark. Hallway. These sounds are not heard. They are sensed. The structure itself remembers. Routine. Doors remain closed the way they were trained to. Stairs creak at the same steps, even empty. The house keeps order. Outside. The town mirrors this stillness. Buildings stand with signs faded beyond recognition. Windows reflect moonlight. Instead of movement, the street holds no tracks. The saloon door never swings. Everything that once depended on the footstep house has followed it into quiet. The desert is patient with this dot. It does not rush to reclaim dot. Sand moves slowly, grain by grain. Dot, it respects time. Occasionally, someone passes through, a traveler, a prospector. They pause near the edge of the town. They look at the house. They do not enter. Something about it suggests completion, like a story already told. Dot, they move on. Dot, at night, animals move freely. Now that their steps are lighter than human ones, they leave no lasting mark. The house accepts them without recognition. Dot, memory belongs to people. Dot, without people, memory loosens. The air inside grows cooler. Dot, seasons pass through. Unchecked. Dot, heat cracks wood. Dot, cold tightens it. Again. Dot, the house adjusts. Dot, it always has. Years pass without record. Dot, no ledgers mark them. Dot, no voices count them. Still, the nights remain consistent. Darkness falls. Dot, stars appear. Dot, wind passes through. Dot, silence deepens. Dot, what once felt heavy now feels smooth. Even absence becomes familiar. Dot, eventually, parts of the roof give way. Light enters places that were never meant to see it. Dust dances where women once moved carefully. The piano collapses. Inward. Dot, strings break without sound. Dot, no one hears it, but the house feels the shift. Dot, it settles again. Dot, lower. Dot, closer to the earth. Time does not apologize for this. Dot, it continues evenly, just as it did when the house was full. Dot, just as it did before the first board was placed. Idea of the house begins to fade. Not the structure. Dot, the idea, the purpose, the reason it existed. Dot, without repetition, meaning dissolves. What remains is shape. Dot, material. Dot, space. Dot, eventually, even travelers stop noticing it. Dot, it blends into the landscape. Another ruin. Dot, another quiet outline against the horizon. Dot, at night, stars look the same above it as they do everywhere else. Dot, the house no longer holds stories. Dot, it releases them. They disperse into the desert air. Dot, into the ground. Dot, into nothing in particular. Dot, this is not loss. Dot, it is completion. Dot, the nights no longer belong to anyone. They belong to themselves again. Silence stretches without being shaped. Darkness moves without interruption. The desert breathes evenly. And where the house once stood as a center of routine, there is now only space. Dot, open. Dot, unclaimed. Dot, at rest. Dot, night continues. Dot, as it always has. Dot, as it always will. Long after the house is faded into the land, the nights remain. They do not remember the house by name. They do not recall its walls or rooms, but they remember rhythm. The desert holds rhythm the way it holds heat. Slowly, patiently, without effort. When darkness falls, it settles into the low places first. Where the house once stood, the ground cools unevenly. Dot, stone remembers pressure. Dot, wood remembers weight even after it is gone. The earth keeps impressions longer than people do. Wind moves across the open space where walls once guided it. It no longer funnels through hallways. Dot, it spreads freely now. Dot, but sometimes it pauses. Dot, as if adjusting to paths that no longer exist. The stars overhead feel closer here. There is nothing rising to interrupt them. Dot, no roofs, no chimneys. Dot, just open sky. Night animals pass through without hesitation. They do not recognize the place as special. Dot, to them, it is simply ground. But their movement is gentle. Dot, instinctive. Dot, as if something older advises caution. The desert does not erase all at once. It works gradually. Layer by layer. Season by season. A board emerges after a storm, then sinks again. A metal hinge glints once in moonlight, then dulls. Nothing disappears suddenly. Everything fades in stages. Time behaves differently here. Without clocks, it stretches. Without routine, it softens. Moments do not line up anymore. They drift. Yet sometimes, the air grows still in a familiar way. The kind of stillness that once fell between conversations. Between footsteps. Between one night and the next. It is not memory. It is echo without sound. The land does not replay events. It absorbs them. The weight of many nights leaves a subtle mark, like footsteps worn into stone, long after the walker is gone. The idea of the house lingers longer than its shape ever did. Not a story. As feeling. A sense that something once happened here repeatedly. With care, with order. Even now, the ground seems arranged. Balanced. As if waiting for movement that will never return. Rain comes rarely. When it does, it settles dust into darker patterns. Temporary shapes. They resemble rooms. Corridors. Edges. By morning, the sun erases them, but for a few hours, the land remembers structure. No one sees this. No one needs to. Meaning does not require witness. Meaning exists simply because repetition once did. The nights continue to fall evenly. Darkness arrives without hesitation. It does not search for purpose. It does not ask where the house went. It moves forward. The same way it always has. The silence here grows deeper than before. Not emptier, deeper. It holds less interruption, less expectation. Even the wind learns not to linger. It passes through and moves on. Years pass without leaving numbers behind. No one counts them. The desert does not measure time in years. It measures in changes that cannot be rushed. The ground settles further. Foundations sink into indistinction. Eventually, even the suggestion of walls disappears. What remains is a slight difference in texture. Subtle firmness underfoot. Nothing more. Travelers who pass through feel nothing unusual. They do not slow. They do not pause. The place no longer asks for attention. It has released that need. What once required maintenance no longer requires anything. No lamps. No voices. No decisions. The land is complete again. Night after night, stars trace the same paths overhead. They did so before the house. They will do so long after. The desert rests in this certainty. There is comfort in predictability. Comfort in cycles that do not depend on people. The nights are calm, here. Undisturbed. They stretch without edges. Without beginning or end. Just continuation. If something remains of the house. It is not story. It is not tragedy. It is not nostalgia. It is quiet order. The kind that exists, even without design. The kind that settles naturally when nothing interrupts it. The place has returned to itself. The nights belong fully to the desert. Now. And they pass gently. One after another. Without needing to remember why. The night no longer carries weight. It moves lightly now. There is nothing left that depends on it arriving, and nothing that waits for it to leave. Darkness settles the way it always has, but without purpose. The land receives it evenly. Where routines once shaped time, there is now only flow. Hours do not stack, they drift. The ground cools, then warms again. Stars rise, then fade. Nothing marks these changes as important. They simply happen. If someone were to stand here now, they would feel calm without knowing why. There would be no story pressing against air. Thoughts. No sense of loss. Only space. And quiet. The desert has reclaimed its patience. Wind crosses the open ground without being redirected. It does not slow. It does not pause. There are no corners to turn. No thresholds to pass. Just movement across openness. At night, the temperature drops gently. The air becomes still. Silence here is not heavy. It is smooth. It does not ask to be noticed. It exists naturally, the way breathing exists when no one thinks about it. Time, without structure, stretches comfortably. Moments lose sharp edges. There is no anticipation of morning. No relief when it comes. Light arrives gradually, as it always does. It spreads across the ground, touching nothing in particular. Shadows are shallow. They disappear quickly. Day does not reveal anything new. Night does not conceal anything important. The cycle continues without emphasis. This place no longer holds roles. Nothing performs. Nothing waits its turn. There is no inside or outside. No center. No edges. Only land beneath sky. And sky above land. The absence of the house is complete. Now. Not as emptiness. As resolution. Nothing is unfinished. Nothing is interrupted. Even memory has softened beyond recognition. If fragments remain, they are indistinct. They no longer connect to meaning. They are simply impressions, like ripples after water stills. The desert does not reflect. It absorbs, and in absorbing, it settles. Animals pass through at night. They pause, listen, then move on. Their instincts find nothing unusual. No warning. No invitation. Just ground. The stars overhead continue their slow, reliable paths. They are unchanged by what once stood here. Unconcerned. Consistent. Their constancy is calming. It reminds the land that change is temporary. That patterns endure beyond. Interruption. The quiet deepens into something steady. Not silence as absence. Silence as balance. Nothing pushes against it. Nothing disturbs it. It does not need to be protected. It is simply the natural state. Restored. The idea of nights as something owned has faded. They are no longer tied to places or people. They belong to the world as a whole, shared equally by everything that rests beneath the sky. Here, sleep would come easily, not because of comfort, because of ease. The ease of nothing expected. Nothing required. Nothing repeating except the most basic cycle of light and dark. This place does not tell stories anymore. It no longer holds them. It has released them fully. What remains is calm without explanation, stillness without effort, completion without announcement. Night settles again. As it will. As it has. As it always does. And in that settling, there is rest. Deep. Even. Uninterrupted. Night arrives without effort. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It simply becomes. The land accepts it the way it always has, without question or resistance. Darkness spreads evenly, softening every edge until nothing stands apart from anything else. Sky and ground meet in quiet agreement. There is no place left to return to. No door remembered. No path waiting to be walked again. What once gathered people into routine has dissolved into space. And space has learned to rest. The air settles into stillness that feels complete. Not empty, complete, as if nothing more is needed to make the night whole. Wind slows, then moves on, unconcerned with where it has been. It leaves no trace of intention behind. Time feels wider here, not longer, wider, moments do not lean forward or backward. They rest where they are. There is no sense of before or after, only now stretching comfortably in all directions. If someone were listening, there would be nothing to follow, no rhythm to keep, no pattern to anticipate. Just the steady presence of night, unfolding exactly as it should. Stars hold their positions calmly. They do not flicker for attention. They shine because that is what they do. Their light crosses distance without effort, touching the land briefly before continuing on. The desert does not respond, that it does not reflect. It simply exists beneath them, grounded and patient. Everything that once depended on structure has let go. Order has returned to its simplest form, light and dark, warm and cool, stillness and movement. Nothing more is required. The idea of endings feels unnecessary here. There is no final moment, no closing scene, only continuation, the kind that does not announce itself. Breath slows naturally in this place. Thoughts loosen their grip. Awareness softens, the night offers no direction. And because of that, it feels safe. There is nothing to solve, nothing to remember correctly. Nothing to hold, sleep would come easily. Now, not as escape, as permission. Permission to stop following, to stop listening, to stop waiting, the land does not ask for attention, it does not mind being forgotten. It knows it will remain, long after words fall silent, long after stories fade, long after even silence loses its name. Night continues, evenly and gently. It does not belong to anyone, it does not need to it simply as and in that simple being, everything rests. Completely, quietly, as it was always meant to.